Welcome to another episode of the When Life Happens podcast. I'm your host, William Jackson, and I'm so excited because we have another opportunity to live, learn, and grow together. And today's topic, what we're going to talk about today, is what I like to call a UCC. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, what in the world is a UCC? Well, a UCC is what I call a universal core concept. That's just a fancy way of saying that this thing that we are going to talk about today hits us all. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter how you were raised. This specific topic transcends race, gender, culture. It doesn't matter. The thing that we're going to talk about today, we all have to face and try to find a way to navigate the best way that we possibly can. And for those who have the ability to navigate this space effectively, the success that they have in their relationships, in their business, in their parenting, in their finances, those who have the ability to navigate this space effectively, their success skyrockets. And for those who do not have the ability to manage this space effectively, their success oftentimes plummets. The goal for today's episode is to get you into a space where your success begins to skyrocket and you can manage this specific space in your life. Because if you can manage this area, I promise you, some of the things that you are facing, you will see a completely different outcome. So today's title of this episode is I'm Mad. Now what? Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about anger. This universal core concept hits us all. And just for a moment, you probably thought about the person who just made you mad this week. Oh, you may be on your way into a place where people are making you angry, and you're probably saying to yourself, oh, I need this badly. I'm so glad that you tuned in, because this episode is going to give you the practical tools on how to manage anger effectively so that you can increase your capacity for success in all areas of life. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Let's get after it. So anger, we see it now on full display. We are in this day and age, especially with social media, where everybody has a platform. Now, while I am grateful for platforms to be able to express and to be able to help people and to pour into people and to help people grow and thrive, the danger of everyone having a platform is that it makes everyone's opinions valid to them. So now when your opinions become valid to you and you start voicing them as truth, as relational law, then what happens is now we have this big, huge melting pot of confused, warped, distorted truth. When everyone has a platform, it gives everyone the freedom to express the emotions and the things that they are facing. Now, it's a healthy way to express the things that you're dealing with because you should get it out. But for those who don't have the ability or the knowledge or even the wherewithal to be able to express in an effective way, giving a platform to someone who is unprocessed is dangerous. Because when you give a platform to someone who is unprocessed, they will bleed out their unprocessed thoughts and feelings into whoever will listen, whoever will give them an audience. And if they are charismatic enough, if they have the ability to navigate the English language enough, if they have the ability to bring people in or galvanize individuals enough, it won't matter that their truth is distorted, warped, and confused. Because a platform gives people an opportunity to gain the attention of an audience. And this past week, I saw this theory at work in such a way that I had not seen in a while. This is the time of year where the Olympic Games are going on. And this is one of those things that brings everyone out from all cultures, all countries. Everyone converges on one space to compete in the global Olympic Games. And every year, the host city has the responsibility of not only hosting the games, but then also opening up the Olympic Games. And I'll be very honest with you. This year was different. This year was, it did not feel and seem the same as past years, as it shouldn't, but it was definitely a sign of the times. This year's opening ceremony for the Olympic Games, in my opinion, was disturbing. And I get it that it was paying homage to certain aspects of how the Olympic Games were created. I understand that it was paying homage to certain aspects of art and artists. But there was this one moment within the Olympic Games opening ceremony where there was a depiction of what was being presented to the world that was very much similar to what people recognize today as the picture of the Last Supper. And from the standpoint of Christians and believers all over the world, this was outrageous. Because the people who were depicting them, in the eyes of Christianity, the faith and what we stand on and what we believe, I say we because I am a believer, it very much came across as if it was a mockery of what the faith sort of accepts and believes to be the Last Supper. The Last Supper was a pivotal moment because as Christians, when Jesus was having his last moments to sacrifice his life for us, it was very much a pivotal space and an important time in history. So this took place globally, and I tell you, the outrage that began to spew from so many people, it was crazy. It was pandemonium. People were angry, people were upset, and you have those people who handle anger differently. Those who are loud and boisterous on social media are those people who handle anger externally. These are the people who are loud when they're angry. They're the children who, when they're mad, they're going to stomp when they walk away. When they're walking away and they start stomping, and depending on the household, you may say, hey, you better walk light. You better pick your feet up. You better be a ninja in here. I don't want to hear no footsteps. But there are certain times where people, they're loud. When they're angry, they're slamming cupboards, they're slamming doors. People argue angry. They're loud. You can hear them all over the place. People who are on the phones and you can hear the conversation. If you're on the phone with somebody and they're not on speakerphone, but it still sounds like you're on speakerphone because the person on the other end is yelling that loud, those are the external anger people. Now, there are also the people who handle anger internally. This can be dangerous. These are the people who internalized. And for years, this was my issue. I just tucked it away. But what happens when you internalize is that eventually you will hit a moment and that thing is going to come out. I don't care what it is. You could be in a space for a long time and you think that you're good. And what happens is when you start to compile your anger internally, the truth of the matter is, once you finally respond, you forget about the root of what actually caused the anger in the first place. People who handle anger internally and they internalize and they stuff and they pack and they stuff and they pack, once they finally do respond, oftentimes from an external vantage point, people think this was so trivial. Why would you respond to that? It often comes across as people are overreacting. You're arguing, you're mad, you're blowing up about Staples. You are literally going off because somebody drank your coffee. Like the response that you just gave did not fit the situation. Why? Because people who are internalizing all of their anger, they stuff it and they pack it and they stuff it and they pack it until they reach a place where they cannot hold it any longer. And once it comes out, it comes out. And it's one of those things, you heard the saying that it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And when people respond to the straw, they oftentimes have lost sight of the initial breach that caused the anger in the first place. So you have your external anger people, you have your internal anger people, and then you have your passive aggressive anger processors. These are the people who want you to know that they're angry, but won't acknowledge that they're angry. These are the people who oftentimes if they're angry or they're upset, they'll just sigh really loud. When they start doing all of these overly dramatic responses to things just for you to ask them what's wrong. And you know what's funny is because even those people who do that, when they're passively aggressive, expressing their anger, and they're doing all these dramatic motions, and you ask them, hey, what's wrong? 9 times out of 10, they say, nothing. Are you mad? No. You can see it visibly in your face. You can hear it in your tone. You have literally positioned your body so that your back is to me intentionally while we're in the car, so I would know that you were upset. You're telling me that nothing is wrong? Nope. These are the passive aggressive anger processors, where they want you to dig. They want you to know that they're angry, but they don't want to acknowledge it. Why is this dangerous? Because it's like the boy that cried wolf. Eventually, people will stop asking. Eventually, people will stop going the extra mile to scale the proverbial wall to get deep down into the depths of your emotions to figure out what's wrong with you. We have to get to a place where we're able to express from a place of comfortability and a place of confidence, because if I can get it out, I can get what I need in, and we can create spaces where we can grow together. But if I am in a space where I am intentionally walling you out, and I'm saying nothing, nope, and I'll tell myself, this is another thing I had to work on. Because I was an internalizer who could not hide it well from those who actually know you. Because that's the thing. People who know you and who are deeply invested in you, who are intentional about making sure that they are locked in with you, they can tell. They know when you're angry. I don't care how many times you say nothing is wrong. I can see it in your face. I can hear it in how you speak. I see it in your body language. I see it in how you respond. When you're really tapped in, that's one of those things that I love. Me and my wife, we're locked in to the degree of knowing that when something is off, the subtleties of how our behaviors change, we pick up on. Hey, what's going on? What you thinking? Things that we think that we're hiding, not even that we're angry with one another, but just things that are bothering us. We could see something and something begins to bother us. And then all of a sudden it starts, the energy that expels is tangible. People can feel it. Like, I know when you're angry, I can feel it in the room. I know when you're upset. I know when you're bothered. So the people who are handling anger from a passive aggressive standpoint are creating the place where eventually, if you're not careful, the people who are trying to get to the core of who you are, The people who are trying to get into a space where they can hear, identify, and know what they can do to support you will eventually lose their zeal. And then we'll be in a space, what? Where now we're looking for people. We're trying to figure out why is nobody asking. I've sighed. I took a deep sigh 32 times and you don't ask anymore. And then people will say, well, every time I ask, you say nothing's wrong. So I just assume nothing's wrong. What happens when people actually start to take you at your word? So those are the types of people who handle anger differently. But the truth is, we all have to find a way to handle it in an effective manner. Because anger is one of those emotions, when it is at the helm of the ship, it can put everything at risk. When anger is running the show, it is pandemonium. It's chaos. When anger is at the helm, you have no real control of even how you respond or how you interact. Because anger does a few things. I'm going to tell you what anger does, and then I'm going to give you practical tools on how to manage it effectively. So there are three things that I believe that anger does, or what anger creates in us when we're actually interacting with people. The first thing is anger is blinding. Anger is blinding. It's one of those things that when people get really, really angry, they stop seeing the person that they're interacting with. They stop seeing the places that they're in. These are the people who, when they're at a restaurant, when something happens, it doesn't matter where you are. People will then cause this out-of-body reaction where they will cut the fool in public, where they will get loud, and people are, you're like, hey, people are around. Why? Because anger has blinded people to see what is actually going on here, to lose consciousness of where you are and who you are talking to. This is why we have to be careful, especially in relationships. When you are married to someone, you can never let your anger or the feelings that you're feeling cause you to lose sight of who you are talking to. This is your partner. This is your best friend. This is your lover. This is the one who you've decided to build and create a life with. And if you are not careful, anger will cause you to lose sight of them. And then you will respond to the situation or to your emotion, and you will forget the fact that this is your partner. Anger causes people to be blind. And when you are blind, you cannot take the healthy perspective of it's not me versus you, it's us versus the issue. This is how we should approach things. But when you are angry and you have not gotten a grip on how you handle anger, you will lose sight of the fact that this is your partner. And I've seen it so many times where people who are married and couples and friends, where you get angry and you say things because it blinded you. You lost sight of that this was your best friend. So you say things hurtful. You say things mean. You say things because you're angry and this is what you're feeling and you just got to get it out. And once you get that out, you can never get it back. And you get it out. And you respond. And then it does irreparable damage to your relationship. Why? Because anger is blinding. It will cause you to lose sight of who you are talking to, where you are, and what really matters here. This is why you have to be intentional, especially as parents. Is that for those who are intentional about making sure that there's a level of discipline in your home, whether it's time out, whether it's trying constructive things or having conversations or whatever you do within your home, you have to be intentional that when children mess up, teenagers, young adults, when kids mess up, you cannot allow that anger to make you blind to the fact that this is still your child. And that they look at you with a certain level of respect, because parents get angry and they go off the hinges. They say all kind of things. You do things, and what happens? It sticks with the child. It sticks with them. and they remember it for the rest of their lives. Now, they may grow past it. They may have a way to move past it and to still love you and have an effective, but it's still in the back of the mind. It's still there. So this is why we have to be able to manage anger effectively. And I'm going to give you tools how. But what's the second thing that anger does? Anger is not only blinding, anger is linear. What do I mean by that? Anger, when you are angry and something happens, you focus all of your attention on what's in front of you. The problem with this is that if something is in front of you, if someone is in front of you, if you are in a place, whatever is in front of you, if you are not careful, you will do damage. You will take out all of the things that you are holding on the inside on whatever is in front of you. This is how people actually go through what I call the doormat syndrome. When people who are fighting through depression and people who have anger and rage issues, the reason oftentimes they come home and release it is because it is linear focus and they take it out on people who are right directly in front of them. You ever had a conversation with someone where they just went off on you and you said, what was that? I didn't even have nothing to do with that. So many times this linear focus can cause people to take out things that happened in their childhood on whoever's in front of them. If anything resembles what they came out of, this linear release will be in a space where it's focused. It's all of the attention out on you. It's all of the attention in this place. It's not this emotion where you have the wherewithal to be cognitively aware to actually say, okay, well, I just need to release a piece here because maybe we need to talk through this, but this has nothing to do with you. So let me just take this and I'm going to set this over here, or I'm going to set this over here. No, anger is linear. And once it comes out in a direct line. And whoever is in the line of sight, whoever is in the line of fire, they catch the brunt of it. Anger is linear. What else is anger? Anger is misleading. When you are angry, you get to the place where you hear things that weren't said. You see things that weren't there. When you are angry for real, it is misleading you to actually now take what you see from your perspective, from your vantage point, and then you create an entirely new reality based on what you have observed and interpreted. Anger is one of those things that will cause you to create a reality based on your interpretation and not the facts. It is misleading you. This is why you should never have conversations, serious conversations over text messages, because people will begin to associate your tone, your inflection, your dynamics. They will see exclamation points that were never there. Especially if you capitalize something or you put a capital letter, all of a sudden you are full-fledged yelling, and you could be typing this text message with the straightest face and the calmest demeanor. But anger is misleading. It will mislead you to see things or to hear things. You ever told somebody a story and you told them and you was very detailed, very clear. And then when they repeated it back to you, it was an entirely different story. And they say, well, yeah, because this would happen. You say, no, it didn't. Yeah, because you said that when we went down the street, or when you went down the street, you hung a left and you ran into a wild zebra that was running. I said, no, what I said is that when I went to the zoo on the left, I saw the zebras running wild. Oh. But see, when you're communicating in anger, you only take pieces and parts, because anger is partial. Anger does this thing that I call partial framing. And instead of seeing the whole picture, I'm gonna catch I'll catch a little bit of it, and then instead of seeing the whole picture, I'm just gonna get a little bit of it, and then I'm going to I know what it's supposed to see, what I'm trying to see, or what it's supposed to be from my vantage point. So I'm just going to go ahead and just assume that I know what the completed picture looks like. So anger is blinding. It's deafening. You stop hearing when you're angry. You've been in that space where anger has gotten you to the point where people can't even calm you down? Because anger is one of those things that is a consuming emotion. It consumes you. When you are angry, you feel it in every fiber of your being. Your neck gets hot. You start sweating. You could be outside in 20-degree weather, sweating. You start to feel it in your hands and your feet and your body because it's a consuming emotion. And there's a response in your body that's trying to let you know that something is going on that you need to be very much intentionally aware of. But if you can't get to the place where you are managing the emotion, the thing that happens next after you experience anger can cause you to experience a plummeting experience, going down a downward spiral. So I'm going to give you practical tools today on how to manage your anger. Are you ready for this? Because listen, these are the tools that have revolutionized my life. These are the tools that I've seen help people that are in my executive coaching programs transition their thought process. These are tools that I've seen help the couples and the husbands that I've counseled. These are the tools that are going to put you into a place where you are able to succeed at just an incredibly different pace and have a greater capacity to show up better. Because that's the goal. That's the goal for this entire show, is to help you show up better when life happens. So if you have something to write with, or if you're taking notes in your phone, or mental, if you write it down in your mind, I want you to write down the page vertically, P-A-P-A, Papa. Now, when you think Papa, first thing you think probably is your grandfather. You may think your dad. You may think a godfather. You know, you may think of someone who is a great grandfather or in an elderly capacity. But I'm going to give you this acronym today on how to manage anger. And the goal is, hopefully next time that you say Papa, you think about it. It's one of those things that connect in a way that you can always remember it. So when you think anger, I want you to think Papa. So the first thing that you need to learn how to do when you are angry is pause. Anger is one of those knee-jerk reaction emotions. When you feel it, you want to respond. When you feel it, you want to get it out. When you feel it, you want to jump. And if you are not careful, jumping out there before you have taken an intentional moment to just sit with it for a second, you could be loud and wrong. Oh, you said this, and oh, this is what you mean. I never said that. What are you talking about? Because if you have not taken the moment to just pause for a second, you miss so much. You miss so much. I've seen it even watching videos, or one of the things that our son is into is they have these animated scenes where cars are racing and they have these crashes, and it reminds me of times of when people react in a knee-jerk reaction when they are either cut off, or when there's traffic, or if something has happened to make them upset, especially when they're driving. When people have a knee-jerk reaction, they stop thinking. And if you haven't just taken an intentional moment to pause, you will miss out on the fact that even though this person cut you off and now you want to get to the other lane so you can get up, so you can mean mug them, so you can look them in the face, so you can actually just roll down your window and tell them what they need to know. You're trying to get over in the lane so quickly because you're trying to respond in a moment, not knowing in your blind spot is another vehicle, and now you cause an accident. Why? Because you weren't able to pause. The science says that if you pause within 7 seconds, in 7 seconds, your brain goes through 11 different impressions in 7 seconds. And if you could just take an intentional moment to slow down, you may be able to save some of the interactions. There are some of the people who are very much the type of people who, if they think it, they say it. You may be one of those people. Are you one of those people that if you think it, it's coming out of your mouth? Or if you think it, you could see it in your face. I know so many people that cannot hide it. I have to tell them all the time, fix your face, fix your face. Because as soon as they think something, and they're like, what? And the eyes start squinching, and you can start seeing they looking, their nose all turned up. And because once they see it and they cannot get to a place where they can hide it, then it becomes a space where now it is affecting every interaction. One of those people who see it or feel it and it's coming out. You can see it in their face. You can hear it in their voice. Have you ever been in a space where you thought something and before you could catch it, it came out? I mean, it slipped on out and you want to, I wish I could get that back. I didn't mean to say that. Was I thinking out loud? Ooh, I probably should have said that. Ooh, I'm sorry. I probably should have just kept that to myself. What happens when you're in a space? Anger it wants you to react instantaneously. It's one of those when you go to the doctor and they check your reflexes. And they check your reflexes and they hit your knee and they want you to respond and to determine how well your reflexes are. Anger is one of those things that tests your reflexes because it happens and it wants you to jump out quickly. Do something about it. And the first thing you have to do is pause. Because within 7 seconds, you give your brain an opportunity to go through the process. You give your brain the opportunity to go through its mechanisms of understanding. You give yourself a moment before you respond to do the next thing that you need to do, which is assess the situation. So first you pause, then you have to assess, because you cannot assess the situation effectively and correctly if you just respond in a moment. If you pause, you can step back for a second and say, okay, what am I seeing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I hearing? What's actually being said here? What's actually going on? Because I could feel that what's happening is one thing, and in all actuality, what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing was completely wrong. Let me stop for a second. Let me assess. Let me pause. Okay, something happened, maybe upset. I'm going to pause. Let me take 7 seconds. And some of us need to literally count in your head. 1, 2, 3. In your head. Now, don't just start counting out loud, because if you are in a meeting or you're talking to somebody or you're having an interaction and you just start counting out loud, you're going to have more problems because they're going to call some people who going to try to check your mind. So you got to be in a space where you can pause so you can assess. Let me stop for a second. Okay. What did I actually hear? And then what was actually said? Let me assess. What actually is taking place here? And then after I assess the situation effectively, I've slowed down for a second so I can take it all in. One of the worst things you could do is allow anger to prompt you to cut someone off before they finish. You hear part of the sentence and you think, okay, I know what you're about to say. And then you respond to a part of it and you get the answer completely wrong. It's like watching Family Feud. Family Feud is one of those shows that's been on for decades. And without fail, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which host, which decade it was in. Without fail, there's always a moment where the two people come up to answer the question, and the host will start to read the question, and people, because they want to finish it, because they want to get done, because they want to get the upper hand, they will hit their buzzer prematurely and try to answer the question. And their answer can be completely wrong. You're so worried about trying to get the upper hand when you're angry, you're causing yourself to answer prematurely, and you haven't even got the whole statement. You haven't even got the whole situation. You haven't even got the entire parameter or the entire thought. You're going based off of what you think, what you feel, because I heard a piece of it, and because that piece may remind me of a piece that happened to me last time. Now I don't want peace, I want war. So let me get the upper hand now, because if I hit my buzzer and I jump in because I'm angry, I could get leverage. Because anger is one of those things that wants you to get leverage. It's one of those things that wants to get power and control. When I'm angry, I got to control the situation. That's what most people think. When I'm angry, I need to be able to navigate this interaction. So let me get the upper hand. So after you pause and assess, after you hear it completely, just stopping for a moment, just pausing and letting the person finish. Let the person explain. Let the person get to a place where they can clarify. Because a part of assessing is asking clarifying questions. When I'm doing my assessment, what happens? I'm asking questions. Okay, so this is what I heard. I just want to clarify. Is this what you meant when you said this? Because this is what I heard. Okay, when you did this, can you tell me why you did that? Okay, when you were intentional about reacting this way, can you give me a thought process behind it? Why? Because in my taking assessment, what I'm now doing is setting myself up to do the next thing effectively. After I pause, then after I assess, then I process. See, processing is different from assessing. See, when I assess, I'm gathering. When I'm processing, I'm now reviewing. So I cannot assess if I haven't taken a pause, and I cannot process if I haven't effectively assessed what actually happened. See, when I'm assessing, I'm getting all the information, everything I need. When I'm processing now, I'm reviewing it. Now, after I have done this, and I encourage you, when you are processing, to do it in a space that is separate from the interaction that you are in, so that you can process effectively, so that you can go through your thoughts, asking yourself first, am I overreacting? Is this me? Okay, now when they did that, based on what their understanding was, could I see how maybe they thought they should have went that route? Okay, after I've assessed, okay, now let me process. How am I feeling? What am I feeling in this moment? I've gotten the data, I've gotten the facts. Now, how am I processing it? Because as I'm going through it, am I really, really angry right now? Am I really, really angry? Why? Am I angry this much because of this isolated incident, or is this a string of incidents? Is this a pattern? Am I angry because this represents or resembles something that happened to me in the past? Why am I angry? What am I feeling right now? Is this one of those things that I need to be really like hard line, non-negotiable, really line drawn in the sand? Or is this something that I could sort of process a little bit and compromise on? Am I being a little too rigid? Am I overreacting? You need time to process. Because if you don't process, then the last A, which is what most people jump to, when you address it, it's wrong. So after I've paused, after I've assessed, after I've processed, then I can address. But what anger tries to teach people to do is, you are angry, address it right now. Do it right now. Say it right now. React right now. And if you haven't done those steps, when you address it, you are addressing it from a partial perspective. You are addressing it from an emotional response. And I tell you all the time, your emotions are irrational, especially if you have internalized, especially if you have packed stuff down for a long time. When you address it, you need to be in a clear mind. Because if not, what you will do is now create spaces where you now spread the radius of what took place that bothered you in the first place. The only people who fight fire with fire are those who desire to spread the fire. The only people who match energy are those who are less concerned with resolution and more concerned with retribution. People who are in the space where they are consistently to say, well, I'm not going to let you do that to me. I'm not going to let you say that to me. I'm not going to put you in a space where you get to get away with that. I'm not going to let you just say what you want to say and do what you want to do. So I got to be the judge and the jury. Those people who are consistently instigating a greater level of conflict because of their anger, what they do is they spread the fire. So now something that could have been rectified here and now is taking months to resolve. Because anger caused you to respond in a way where you said something disrespectful, where you reacted in a way, where you maybe turned to someone you weren't supposed to. Maybe you turned to something you said that you would never do again. Because if you can't control anger, it blinds you to what's actually happening. It blinds you as to who you are interacting with. It blinds you as to what's important. And it causes you to have a linear focus. It's like horses with the blinders on. It shrinks your focus radius. So now you can't even see the whole picture because the only thing you see is what's happening in front of you. And then it begins to mislead you to believe that you have the right to respond because of what you feel. Now, your feelings are valid. Everyone has the right to feel how they desire and feel how they feel. But to say that you have complete autonomy to respond to whatever way you want to respond is egregious. Just because you are angry does not give you the right to hurt someone else. Just because you are angry does not give you the right to disrespect someone else. Just because you are angry does not give you the right to respond in a way that is detrimental to building and finding common ground, because conflict is an opportunity for us to find common ground and to get better. But if I'm not intentional about managing the anger, if I can't take a pause and slow down, then I can never effectively assess the situation. So I miss things. So when I process, I'm processing from a fragmented perspective. So now my processing is fragmented, which means whatever comes out in how I address it is going to be based on fragments, not even the whole picture, not even the whole idea, not even the whole conversation. So my address is going to be sharp and jagged because it's going to be broken in the confines of my limited perspective and my viewpoint. And when anger gets involved, whatever you feel from your vantage point, from your viewpoint, it creates a space where your truth now becomes gospel. Because anger wants to validate everything that you're feeling and why. This is why we have to be intentional about creating spaces to manage anger, so that when I'm angry, I'm not just lashing out on social media at people. When I'm angry, I'm not just saying all kind of ridiculous things. You got to have a safe space to be a sounding board, but also you need to be intentional about your anger process. Because if I can't pause and if I can't assess, then I can't process. So when I address, it's going to be toxic. It's going to be loud. It's going to be wrong. It's going to be fragmented. And then I am only spreading the fire. This is why we have to be intentional. Because when life happens, and trust me, it will, you need to behave in a way that promotes the fluidity of you being able to navigate anger effectively. Anger wants you to get rigid and stuck and stubborn. But once you have a fluidity, even in anger, now you have a greater capacity to find common ground. Because just because you're angry doesn't make you right. So we got to be in a space where we can find out how to navigate anger, because when you can navigate anger effectively, it increases your capacity to find success in every area of life. Listen, I hope that you got something out of this episode. I challenge you to go back, rewatch it, take some notes, re-listen to it, jot down some things that stood out to you. Don't forget to like and share this podcast. Share this with someone who needs to know how to deal with anger effectively. And if by chance you walk away from this episode, from seeing it or from listening to it, I need you to understand that you have inside of you already everything you need to overcome and succeed when life happens.